Here we go.
Do it.
Okay, cool.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Coffin Talkin', where we unravel the mysteries, embrace the peculiar, and find humor in the unconventional world of funerals and death. Here's Frank.
Hi, Holly. Coffiners, we have to first of all say there's issues with growing. And so we got little problems here and there, little technical issues.
Yeah, we had some technical issues here. And here's the thing. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Right when we're going ready to record, it just doesn't seem to work.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
So forgive us again. I feel like we should introduce ourselves again.
Oh,
because we have a lot of new listeners. So you should do a little biography, and then we'll jump into our weeks.
Okay. So my name is Frank, and I have been in the funeral industry for, I don't know, close to since 1985. So is that
1985?
Yeah. Can you believe it?
That's rough.
That is a long time, right? And so Holly came up with the idea of having to do just doing a little podcast of maybe a half hour an episode and just sharing some of the stories of what I've experienced while in the industry. Good, bad, humiliating, scary,
funny.
Mm-hmm. So that's why we're here. And that's basically a little bit of a background on me. But if you want to go back and learn a little bit more, I think episodes 1 and 2, we get a little bit more into detail on that. But that's me in a nutshell. What about you, Holly?
I'm Frank's daughter. That's about it.
Wow. Finally, someone's related. Someone's identifying themselves just on my life. Yay. Way to go, Holly. All right, I guess the only thing you need
to know about me is that I frequently reference Caden. Caden's my husband. And he's the best. He's going to school. I just work now, and that's that.
And do this podcast.
And I do this podcast.
Which is
sometimes it's released on Mondays.
That's usually when we want it to be released, is on a Monday, but there it is. That's okay.
We do our best, but I feel like there's been 2 weeks now.
It has been. It's been a while.
It's been 2 weeks within a pretty close proximity to one another that we've kind of missed the ball there, but we're doing our best, so just bear with us, I guess.
I guess. Just bear with it. Oh, there it is. All right.
I guess you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
But we do have a segment where we do a phone and funeral, and then at the end of that, we like to hear some of the listener stories. So if you do have stories, please let us know. Send them in, and we'll eventually get to them, and it'll be fun to sit and analyze some of the stories that we hear and read about from our listeners.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Know that we're not just the only ones experiencing these things.
That's right.
I say we. It's usually just you.
Well, no, you should feel free to share any of these experiences because we know that they do exist and that they're out there for everyone to take and participate in.
Yeah, definitely. So anyways, how was your week?
It was good. Hot. We're already pushing 85 degrees, close to 90. We're supposed to be reaching 100 degrees this month.
Are you kidding me?
No. So that will be one of the first times, I guess, in years that Arizona has reached 100-degree weather. And in March. And so we're hoping that we don't reach it, but needless to say, here it is, there and there.
Well, that's awful. Crazy that you live there still.
I know. It's been years. It's home right now. Yeah. It's been home. It's home.
It's home. You had a birthday.
I did.
Hooray.
Oh, geez. That's true. I did. And so,
how was that?
I'm a proud 52-year-old. And
Are we sure
Oh,
about that?
yeah. So everyone's calculating. Hold it. He's been in the industry since 1985. What?
Child labor.
Child labor. There it is. No, but it was good. So what about the rest of your week, Holly? Nothing?
Well, here's the thing. No, I have two potential stories.
Okay.
Which one do you want to hear? Number one or number two?
Are we going to hear them both?
I don't know. You could, I guess. Do you want to?
Let's hear one.
Number one?
Yes.
Okay, well, this is the interesting one. So, let me paint a picture for you. We're coming out of winter. As opposed to Arizona, it's not 90 degrees here. It's just starting to get into the 50s. So we're feeling pretty good. The sun's coming out. So Caden and his buddies decide to go play some basketball at the law school. And so they're playing basketball. I say, I'm not going to that because they were going to be there for 3 hours. So what did I do? I'm a pretty studious, hardworking lass. So I say, I'm going to clock into work, take care of some emails, but I'm going to do it in the nice weather. So I go outside on my front lawn. I take the cats. Oh my gosh, Coffners. If you don't know me, I have 2 cats. One is named Nelson. He's fat and angry. One is named Maybe. She's small and so adorable. So.
But dumb as rocks. Go
but
ahead.
She's so dumb. But she's so cute.
Yeah.
So I'm outside. The cats are chasing each other. Nelson, it's getting warm enough that Nelson is seeing bugs fly around the yard, and he does his parkour in the yard trying to catch the bugs. So he's like doing flips over himself. It's so fun. So I'm watching them for a little bit. I clock in to work. And right as I clock in, I hear this huge, massive rustling noise that, come to find out, it's wings. Big feathered wings. I look over to our neighbor's lawn, which is, well, it's their fence. So it's the fence separating our house from the neighbor's house. It's like 15 feet away from me. It's really close. So I look over, and this massive bird jumps up onto the fence. And I'm going, where am I? What the heck is this? And I'm fairly certain that it looks like a vulture, because what I initially thought is that it was like ready for Thanksgiving, big turkey jumped up onto the fence, because it was huge. It was a really big bird. But I'm thinking, okay, it's not a turkey because it doesn't look like a turkey, but it didn't look like a vulture. Its neck was wrong. You know how they have that creepy neck and head?
Yeah.
It didn't have the creepy neck and head like vultures have. So I was going, what the heck is this? And then, right as I'm thinking this thing is going to swoop in and carry Maybe off because she's 6 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
Another huge bird, same one, jumps up onto the fence. And then another, and then another, and then another. There are 5 of them now sitting on the fence, all staring at the cats.
And maybe staring back, but yeah, go ahead.
Maybe is staring back. Just nothing in her eyes, nothing behind it. But she's completely puffed. She's very scared. Nelson has taken a defensive position. He's just staring at the birds, trying to figure out a way to take them down and square up with them. And then they fly from the fence to the roof of the next door neighbor's house. So these birds can fly. They go from the roof to the big trees next to the house. So they're flying up to the trees. They're making these weird clucking noises. Very strange, very weird. Nelson's trying to catch them before they get into the trees. Like he's going to take one down. Okay.
Okay.
But the best part of this is that Maybe was sitting. She ended up sitting on this little column that the house has in front of it on the porch, and just staring up at the birds. And every once in a while, you could hear Nelson making his little bird sounds that's trying to coax them closer. But then I hear Maybe, and she's staring at the birds as she's doing this, and she just goes, meow, meow. And it's like the sweetest little meow. Like she's trying to make friends with them or something, or trying to talk to them.
Don't eat me.
trying to, oh my gosh, it was so funny. Nelson's on the hunt at this point. Maybe he's trying to make a friend. But anyways, I was wrong. They were turkeys. I guess I was right. They're wild turkeys
Wow.
in Provo, Utah.
Don't they kind of look like a large pigeon?
Yeah, but it looks like, I'm not kidding, like 10 pigeons put together. They were massive. Oh my gosh.
Were you glad to finally see them fly away?
I was glad. And the neighbors came home in their big truck.
Yeah.
And they pulled up into their driveway, and it must have scared them out of the trees. So they all take off in a horde flying away. And the neighbors look up and they're going, what in the world was that? And I thought they were kept as pets because I was like, there's no way these huge birds are just in someone's backyard. It's got to be a pet.
Right.
Or something. But it wasn't. They had no clue.
No one claimed ownership.
No one claimed the birds. The birds flew away.
Speaking of the birds, as your story is being unfolded, I was thinking of Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And the birds.
It's starting. Oh my gosh. It's starting. Protect your eyes.
Oh my word.
So that was the excitement of my week.
That's pretty exciting, actually. Oh, did you clock out while you were looking at the turkeys?
No, I didn't. I hope my boss isn't listening. Because I did not clock out, but I did not do any work. I did some work after they flew away.
Oh, okay. But that was what, 40 minutes into your login time?
I'm not going to say that on this recording.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. I'm just thinking in my mind, time in Holly's story. Let's see. It's probably 40, 45 minutes. Okay.
Probably. Yeah. I watched those birds for a long time.
Sounds good. I'm glad that you actually saw them. It would be fun to see the wild turkey.
It was very strange. Yeah, it was very, very strange. Never have I ever seen one in Utah, let alone in Provo in someone's backyard, just jumped up on their fence.
Can you imagine if someone was in the neighborhood with a gun and then started firing at them? Yeah, firing at them.
Yeah.
I would be scared about my own life at that point.
Yeah, me too. But man, Nelson was squaring up with them. He was trying so hard to get to them.
Nelson, he's big enough to think he can, small enough to realize he can't.
Yeah, probably not a great idea, but.
Oh, Nelson.
Oh, so that is my highlight of the week.
Sounds great. A good highlight of the week.
It's a pretty good one. One of my better highlights.
That's correct.
So let's go ahead. Let's be frank.
Thank you very much. And Coffiners, that's when that comment comes into play. That means that we're turning attention to the story. So today I want to tell you about, and I've talked to you a little bit about each of the Coffiners, about some of the people that I've worked with in the past. There is a position in the funeral industry. It's called trade embalmer. Now, we've talked about this in other episodes. Holly, can you tell me what a trade embalmer is?
Let's see. A trade embalmer is when you see one of your funeral home friends on a different funeral home.
Yeah.
They call you up and they say, hey, Frank, you want to do a trade embalming? And that means that you show up to their facility, you do the embalming for them, and then they give you something in return.
Cash, generally.
Oh, cash.
Okay, cash. No, or a payment of some sort. So you're exactly right. So when I say trade embalmer, that means that the funeral home is so busy with their own personnel that they don't have time to sit and do the embalming. So they hire someone from the outside to come in and take care of the embalming. So this story revolves around one of my friends that I came to know fairly well. He and I would joke around a lot. He had the type of personality that was very jovial. He loved to laugh. He loved to sing. He loved to do like I do, tap his fingers on things. And so he was just one really interesting young man to talk to. So he and I weren't that far apart from each other in age, but he was the embalmer that this facility chose to call upon when they needed the additional help. Well, we were actually extremely busy. And when I say extremely busy, if we had 4 funerals in one day, that would be an understatement. Because we had 2 chapels, maybe 3, on site of the facility, and every chapel was going. And so when one would be done, we'd be breaking down and taking an individual or body over to the service once again to set up for another one. And we did that in we probably did 15 services that day between the three chapels. And that was a lot. And so that's why we had called this young man to come in and do some embalming for us. Now, he, granted, he had his own job. He worked as well. And so he would come in after hours. And I remembered speaking with him briefly when he came in. I just said to him, and this was on one occasion. So I just said, hey, it's good to see you. We've got a lot of work for you. Hope you're not going to be too tired when you leave in the morning. And he said, oh, no, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. And so the next morning, you got to realize that in our work office area, there's this huge grease board. And we've talked about grease boards before, but this one was really big, and it held all the names of the people that we were working with, the families, and their dates of services, whether cremation, burial, whatever the case might be, cemetery stuff. But next to the names that needed to be embalmed, there was an E placed. And we knew that body was embalmed when the embalmer, in this case, my friend, would come down after his embalming and he would circle the E. That would tell us that person had been embalmed. So we didn't worry about it. And so it was the next morning when we'd come in and look at the board and realize there's 4 E's on the board that still hadn't been embalmed. That's when we would start to panic. So
he was doing 4 in one night?
Yeah, you can. It takes all night, but you can.
Yeah, geez.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half per embalming. So anyway, in this particular case, I just remembered looking at him and thinking, hey, he's here. He doesn't look that bad. He's looking pretty good. And so he left, he said hi and came in and goodbye. And it was really nice just to see him. Mm-hmm. And it was good to know that he had done the embalmings. So let's fast forward about a couple of weeks. Same situation was happening. We were so busy that, and I was not a full-fledged licensed embalmer yet. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have a licensed embalmer with me. Mm-hmm. And my manager, owner of the facility said, Frank, call this young man, have him come in and do these embalmings. And I said, oh, okay. So I called him and I said, hey, we've got another night like we had a couple of weeks ago where you're probably going to spend here all night here if you don't watch yourself or pace yourself. And he said, okay, that's no problem. I've got a couple of things I have to do, but I'll come over as soon as I'm done. I said, that's perfect. So we continued on with our services, and we were finishing up at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. Mine ended at 8 o'clock. There were still some more services going on until 9:30, but I remember I lived in the facility. So I just went on upstairs, and I just said, hey, how you doing? I'm really tired. Thanks so much for coming in. I'm going to go ahead and go to bed. So He said, hey, have a good night. And so that was that evening. I just closed the door, walked to my apartment, and didn't really think much about it. But the alarm went off in the following morning, and I went downstairs to check on the board and see what was going on. And it was customary for me that it was so nice in the mornings that I would open the front door, and then I would open the back door and allow a cross section of wind coming through the front door all the way.
Cross breeze.
A cross breeze. Yeah, I loved it. Come all the way across and through the back door. And it was quite a strong current. So it was really nice. And it would just kind of, you know how it is. You have to clear the air from the night before. And it's just.
Could you still smell at that point?
Yes. And so, yeah, I could. Actually.
Unrelated.
Yeah. But thanks, Coffeners. Yeah, you'll want to know about that later, I'm sure. But as I was looking at the board, I remembered looking over at the door that was open in the back area, and there comes my friend, and he comes walking out down the stairs. I didn't hear him come around, but he comes through, and I look at him and say, hey, thanks for all you've done. And he just kept right on walking. Didn't acknowledge me, didn't do nothing. He just kept right on walking. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. So I was going on ahead taking phone calls or answering calls from the night before, because we didn't have an answering service through the night. We'd have the message machine pick up the message, and then if there were death calls through the night, unfortunately, that family probably had to keep that body in the house until we picked up the call the next morning and said, okay, we're on our way. Ooh. So who knows how long that could have been. And we don't do that anymore, just so you know, Coffeners, but we answer and go immediately. But the facility I worked with, it didn't really, they were so busy anyway. They didn't, if they lost a case here and there, I don't think it was a big
It
deal.
didn't matter to them.
No.
Yeah.
So I was in the course of answering these or calling back these families that had left messages. And I just remembered looking up and seeing him exit the door. And I just, hey, waved. And he just kept right on walking, which I thought was odd. So I didn't really think much about it. And then I started continuing working with these families, doing what paperwork I needed to do and get the death certificates en route. And now we do all the death certificates are done electronically, but then we had to physically hand carry these death certificates to the doctors for signature. And so
Wow.
I was getting all these death certificates ready for our runner that would come in at 10 a.m. And then he would take a stack of death certificates and we wouldn't see him again until 5 or 6 p.m. because he had to travel all over the valley trying to get
Because you have to
these.
find each individual doctor.
That's correct. And
That's
so
tough.
it was tough. And so again, death certificates were the most important thing to get done because without the signed death certificate, nothing really could happen, whether it be cremation or burial.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember getting the stack of stuff together. And then just by happenstance, I just looked up at the board and there was one circle of 4 on the E's. And so there were, to me, right then when I saw that, I go, oh my gosh, he only did one of the 4 bodies last night.
Right.
That was the thought that I had as I looked at the board. And I thought, well, oh my gosh, I just saw him. Let me try and call him. So I called him and the phone just rang and rang and rang and rang. And then so I tried to page him. No answer to the page. And I said to my boss, I said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but so-and-so isn't answering his phone or his pager. And
Right.
we need him to finish up these 3 other embalmings. And he said, well, maybe he just forgot to do it. Frank, go on upstairs and see if those individuals have been embalmed. I said, oh, okay. So as I was getting ready to go upstairs, I got sidetracked. And so I wasn't able to make it right up when I was asked to go up. And so my supervising embalmer, who I've mentioned in one of the previous episodes, and I won't mention his name here, he just said, Frank, when you're ready, let's go on upstairs and see if together we can knock these individuals out if they haven't been embalmed.
Sure.
And this was perfectly legal at that point because he's my supervising embalmer.
He would supervise you.
Yeah, that was perfect. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, let's do it. And so he cleared it with the bosses and walked upstairs, opened the door, and there was our friend hanging.
No.
Yeah. He was definitely deceased and he was hanging in the prep room. And I looked at him, at my supervising embalmer, and I said, oh my gosh, that's why he's not answering his pager. And he looks at me and he goes, Frank, I thought you said you saw him this morning.
And you're going, I did.
Yeah, exactly. Now think about this for just a minute. So I did see him this morning, but he walked right through the doorway, never acknowledging me, just kept focused and walked right out of the building. So as I'm looking and thinking about this experience, I'm thinking, was that his spirit, or did he go and then come back?
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
Shoot, yeah.
But no one saw him come back, and his car never left the parking lot.
Oh my gosh! And I'm sure you got like a time of death based on.
And they did it on body temperature. They didn't do it on. But the investigators that came into the prep room and looked at him figured that he probably. Okay, so you've got to know that our ceiling is 10 feet tall.
Okay.
It's a solid ceiling. There's no way of hanging anything from there. But yet somehow or another he was hanging from that ceiling. And we kept looking at the ceiling and thinking, how in the world is he attached to the ceiling? We couldn't see anything.
What?
Exactly. We couldn't see anything that was attaching I'm not even going to call it a rope. It was the gown that he was using as an embalmer. So it was around his neck and he was hanging from that robe that he was wearing. That's where he was hanging, and his neck was hanging over that circular portion around the neck. And so the coroner said that he probably, and see this, it makes no sense to me. The more and more I think about it, he said he probably got up there to change a light bulb.
What?
Yeah, he could change a light bulb, but there was no ladder. and there was no one else in that room. So I don't know. The ladders themselves are found downstairs, the prep room's upstairs. And so we're just thinking to ourselves, well, hold on just a minute. Either he was standing on a really tall block of ice, which all the water has
Right.
evaporated. All the
Because
water has
nothing's under
evaporated.
him.
Yeah. And we couldn't figure out for the life of us. And even if he stood on an embalming table, because we had 4 in the room, if he stood on an embalming table to hang himself, there's no way. I mean, his feet were close to 2.5, 3 feet off the tallest embalming table.
So he'd have to jump.
Yes. So we're thinking, how in the world did it happen? Number one, but they called it a suicide. But my supervising embalmer and I were looking at the whole room and then we looked at each other. This wasn't suicide, and we don't know what happened. Yes, we don't know what was taking place in that prep room. We don't know what happened, but we're sure. We're fairly sure, because he and I put together this timeline, and he had to have passed away before I saw him leave the building.
I don't even know what to ask about this.
See?
Hold on. So, first of all, what actually was he hanging from in the ceiling? Like, was it a ceiling fan? Was like the coat in the boards of the ceiling? Like,
okay.
How was it attached?
This is part of the book, but this is what's going to blow your mind. He was hanging from the rope.
Has it been blown already?
I don't know how he has it. He was hanging from you know how you put on a robe and you tie it in a knot behind you?
Sure. Yeah.
On your neck and also down by your waist, just keep the robe tight. He was hanging from the tie around his neck, back where he would have tied the bow, on a sprinkling system.
On a sprinkler system. So on one of those little metal guys that comes out of the ceiling.
Yes. And yet somehow or another that was suicide. Remember, I've got 2 more stories about this mortuary.
This is the same mortuary?
Yes. I think he came across a bad spirit. And I think that spirit threw him into the air, and it caught him on that sprinkler unit.
Seriously? That's what you think?
That's what I think. I don't know if it's true. I don't know. I have any proof or evidence to back it up. But I do know what feelings were, what other experiences were had in that facility. And I'm just thinking, because I know sometimes I've
one
left
already?
Yes.
Which one was this?
X.
What? This was the red X?
Yes. Now this is the same building as the red X.
Right.
But it's not.
Oh my gosh.
But it's totally different stories, because this happened probably easily a year after.
Is it different stories though? You have 2 people levitating.
See, I know. It is true. And one of the things that I thought of immediately was that red X story.
Yeah.
When we went into the prep room, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's still here. That was my first thought.
Oh.
And then I couldn't tell my supervising embalmer, because he's all, oh my gosh, he's starting to weep just a little bit, because he and were such good friends. He's starting to weep just a little bit. And he says, I can't understand what's happening here. I don't know what's happening. And so I think that he came in at night. And by the way, all 4 were embalmed.
All 4 were embalmed.
All 4 were embalmed, except the last one had been embalmed, but not sewn up. So something either
happened in the middle of that.
Yes, stopped him, or something happened to where he couldn't complete it. And so I'm in my mind, I'm just telling you, the fact is I saw them and what was reported back, and in my mind thinking that could not have happened, because here he was already 2.5 feet above the nearest prep table. Prep tables are stationary to the floor. He was 2.5 feet to the head end of that table, hanging on a sprinkling system up in the air, probably, I think it was a 12-foot ceiling, and at that point, and here he was hanging there, and we're just thinking, and you're calling that suicide? No chair, no ladder, nothing around there. And who else would have been in the building? No one. It was late.
Mm-mm.
everything would have been locked up. He would have locked it up when he left.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
wasn't it locked up? Because I mean, you said you slept. Um, your apartment was in that building, right?
yeah,
Did you hear anything? Did you wake
no,
up in the night?
no,
No.
no.
Oh my
But,
gosh. So
and
the
you know
prep
me.
tables, they're bolted to the floor.
The prep tables are bolted to the floor
So he couldn't have
in that
moved
prep
it
room.
underneath him.
No.
What the heck?
And that's why I'm saying when they were saying this, I was looking, he was looking at me and, I could see it in his, but I could see it in his eyes. And just as a side note, Coffiners, I try not to mention anyone in particular in these stories, only because for privacy reasons. But anyway, he and I both made eye contact and we both went to dinner that night. And we were just kind of thinking and in the course of the dinner, we were replaying everything in our minds. There was no way that added up to suicide.
So your
Because
supervising embalmer agreed with you.
yes, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why is because that loud buzzer that would have had to have gone off if someone entered that room.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about
You
the
remember that?
buzzer.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I would know it because that would wake me up every time the buzzer went off. I would wake up and
Yeah.
think, "Oh my gosh, did we get a first call? Is someone here with a body that needs to be embalmed?"
So he
So
was definitely the only one in that room.
yeah, to our knowledge, yes. And
But
so
only one of the names was circled
only one of the names was circled, which means
as
and
being
what he
embalmed.
yeah, and what he would normally do is once he was the embalming was done, and this was another key fact. Once one of the embalmings was done, he would go down and sit down and do the embalming report, and then circle the E.
Okay.
So that would mean that he'd have to go back up to the prep room, did 3 more embalmings without coming down and doing because we couldn't find any embalming reports on the other 3.
See, that's
But he,
weird to me. Why would he do
yeah,
the first one and then not go down
I
after
don't
each
know.
one?
I don't know. And these are the things that we are rattling around in our own minds as we're talking about a good friend of ours that had just passed
Right.
away. And so we knew that it was within hours because we all welcomed him into the building. Everyone saw him when he walked into the building.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was there that evening. I mean, it was around 6:30, so anyone working a service would have seen him.
And I mean, he was in good spirits. He wasn't
Yeah,
like,
he was himself. So and even then I walked up and said good night to him, and he was just in there whistling and singing, and
oh
yeah,
my gosh.
totally weird. But the thing that catches me off guard the most is there was nothing that he could have put himself on because it would have still been there.
Yeah,
Is my point.
yeah. Or
If
it
he
would have
stood on
like
a
he would have
chair,
knocked it over or
that's
something.
right. If he
It
stood
would
on
have
a
been
chair,
obviously right there.
that's right. Nothing was there. There was nothing there. And then him hanging there, and then also the embalming tables not being able to move to help support him. There's no way that was a suicide.
So there was an embalming table right underneath where he was?
So when you say right underneath, no, because that hook or that sprinkling unit, if I was to draw a line straight from the sprinkling unit to the floor, there was probably a 3-foot gap between the head of the table and to where his feet were hanging.
How would
So
they
there
rule
was,
that as suicide? He literally had no way to get up there.
that's exactly right. That's what we were saying. But that's what his death certificate says. Suicide.
Well, that's
But I
probably all that
always,
they could figure because they're like, okay, what do we make of this?
yeah.
It's a
And
hanging, must be a suicide.
oh man, just I get a visual of it, and to this day I look at it and I think something's so wrong there. Something was wrong, and I can't figure out how it would have happened. There was no little exercise trampoline under him, where he could have jumped up and bang,
Jumped up.
yeah, whatever. There was no indication of how he got that high, and the only thing I could think of is that you sometimes get this an evil spirit power or energy,
Yeah.
and where things can be thrown, furniture specifically.
Yeah.
I've done episodes where clothing's been knocked off of shelves,
Right.
plasticware's been knocked off of shelves. But if
Chairs
that
have
energy is,
moved.
yeah,
Plants have fallen over.
correct. If that energy is strong enough and focused enough, could it lift a human?
I mean, going back to Red X, yes.
Yeah. I have no idea. I have no way of understanding. And if coffiners want to chip in and tell me a little bit, you're full of it, that's okay. Or if you want to just say, hey, this is probably what happened, Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I
What
have
in the
ruled out,
world?
I've ruled out everything except for that earthquake that occurred in 1986, whatever, in California, and where the roof would have bent like this and he could have stood up and caught himself, whoa, whoa, and it pulled him right up.
Whoa.
No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
That would never happen. But,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I'm just telling you, this was one of those, when we were talking about the episodes to do, and I didn't want to do it behind formaldehyde, but I'll tell you what, it is something when I think about it that just makes me go, because I don't know, and I wish I had, and we couldn't put cameras in there ever
No,
because
you
of the
can't.
privacy of the individual that's you're doing work on. So it
Oh my
became
gosh.
very, even my boss, even at the funeral, uh, my boss said it's a tragic event when someone's life is taken by suicide. And I just thought to myself, well, do you listen to yourself? We've had this conversation. How can you say it's suicide? I just don't.
But isn't this the same boss that after Red X happened, he's like, oh no, that didn't happen. You need more sleep. So, I mean, of course he's going to
Holly,
accept that.
he's also the signage boss.
Is he seriously?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Shoot.
Uh-huh.
I had sworn to hate that man, but I love the signs. Oh my gosh.
He is funny. Oh boy. So anyway, yes, I'll leave that right as it is. There's a couple of other points of interest that I'll put in the story and that have been put in the story. And one that I didn't want to mention to you was that he was hanging from the sprinkler spigot on the ceiling, because no one, I mean, if you really want to put a wrench into a thought process, do that.
Because that even is like so small.
Yeah. It's almost like someone it's like lifting a hanger and putting it on the hook.
Wait, was it tied around the sprinkler, or was it just like
it was wrapped around the sprinkler? No, it was wrapped around the sprinkler.
It was wrapped
once.
Just once.
Which would have tightened it around his neck. Well, I just think, and those robes. Okay, so I'm
having a hard time getting the visual of the robes, like with a tie around the neck. I don't know that I've seen those. I don't know what to picture there.
Okay, so if you, picture a butcher.
Okay.
A meat butcher. Mm-hmm. What kind of, they have a smock on, right? When they're cutting meat. What wraps around their neck? There's something, it's holding that smock up because the tie is around his neck.
Like an apron.
Right. But
okay.
This one here would have been tied close to his neck because you don't want
any splatter or anything.
Yeah, anything going into your shirt or clothing. And so that's exactly what was happening. But this particular tie, which is and they're heavy duty smocks. So people say he would have torn it. No, he weighed probably 110 pounds. And the smock itself would have easily carried 200, 250 pounds easily without tearing. But not anymore. Do you know why? Because of this incident.
Story? Seriously?
Because of this incident. They now made the shawls or the smocks of such a fiber that kind of, yes. It's a breakaway way. It's kind of, you don't call it that, but if someone came behind me and pulled on the back of my smock, it would tear before it hurt me.
Wow. Because of this.
Yep. Because of this.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, I guess we're grateful to him for, lighter weight smocks, but still it doesn't change any of the feelings or the thought processes that I have when I think of my friend. Our friend, and what had to have happened in there, I have no idea. This is one of those that I wish I could tell you firmly what transpired, but I cannot.
Oh my gosh! But you're convinced? You're sure it wasn't suicide?
Holly, nothing points to suicide.
I know.
If it was closer on top of the table, surely he could have done that, bent his knees and allowed himself to hang. But where he's 3 feet to the head, where the table ends, and then 3 feet further to the
he would literally have to run off the table, perfectly hook it onto the and it's pretty close to his neck, so like he doesn't have a whole lot of room.
No give. And that was pretty clear too, because his neck, I mean, even the angle of his head, you would have seen that it was really close to the roof, to the ceiling.
Oh,
There's
oh,
no,
you just feel
I
so
just can't.
awful for him.
Yeah. Well, wait, because in the next run, we'll do a backup of this one. And I'll lead up to some of the happenings that were happening in that building prior to his quote unquote suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So how did he seem when he passed you in the morning? You
I
said
told you.
he didn't talk to you, he didn't acknowledge you. Did he
Did
seem
not.
like angry? Were
Nope.
you like, "Oh, he's having a rough morning."
Nope. He just seemed like he was focused on doing what he had to do next. And like I say, he was a trade embalmer. And plus he had another job. So I just figured he was right on. He didn't have time to talk. He was on his way to his other job.
And you said he was only in his 20s?
He was, well, probably early 30s.
Oh. That's so awful.
Yeah. He had no wife, no children. But his parents, he had his parents. Yeah.
Ugh. Oh my gosh, that's bizarre.
It
I
is
don't even know
bizarre.
what to think of that.
Yeah. So that's that story there, Holly. And so as you think about it, you just kind of wonder if, well, they were so certain that it was suicide and his mom was so distraught.
Oh, I'm sure. Did you guys handle his service?
We did. He was embalmed in the room he hung himself.
Oh,
Supposedly.
was hung.
Was hung. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh
yeah,
my
it's a
gosh.
tragic story, kind of a horrific story, and yet one that
It's
makes
horrific.
me, I just keep thinking to myself, how in the world did he do it? If he did it, how did you do it?
How did he do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Makes no sense to me.
So does that coming in and seeing your friend like that, does that because you can't figure it out? Like does that make you more angry than sad and just like what the heck happened? Sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. At first, my supervisor and myself, he ran to grab his legs to see if he could get him,
Yeah.
off the hook. And then I started to help him. He says, hold it, wait, no, investigators have to see how he was found.
Oh, yeah.
And so we just sat there and watched and just waited for them to come in. And then they had invited us to leave. And both he and I said, no, we'll stay. We're okay. If we're not going to be in your way, we'll stay. So, yeah, it was.
Be with him at least.
Yeah. So it was, yeah. But when you see someone that that has passed away, I think all rationale leaves. You just try and do what you can to save him, even though they may already be gone.
Right.
There's nothing that's going to stop you from trying not to save him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is a surreal feeling.
Especially when they pass away in such a way like that.
Yeah. Although at dinner that night, when he and I went to dinner, we did discuss the fact that he probably died doing what he liked to do. And
embalming?
that was embalming.
Did he really enjoy it?
Well, he never gave us any indication that he didn't. Every time we called and told him we had 3 or 4 that needed to be done. Yeah, okay,
He
great.
always, yeah.
Yeah, great. I'll be there. They can be all done tonight, right? Yeah, not, if we call them in the morning, but I can come in after work and do them all tonight, right? And it's, yep, no problems. Yep.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is just, I don't know what else to make of that. I guess now let's just honor his memory and kind of remember him in a fond way. And
I don't even try and solve it anymore. I just try and think to myself, well, maybe I do in a way. I just think, how in the world did that happen the way it happened, and what could I use as an explanation?
Yeah.
And I can't. I don't have one. I've reeled it through my mind often, over and over and over. I cannot, for the life of me. There was nothing that was movable in that prep room that he could have stood on and kicked away. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Especially mid embalming. That's what's weird for me.
Yeah.
I mean, like if he was going to take his own life, I would think he would do it right before he started or after he finished everyone. Like, why do 3.5 embalmings?
Yeah. Well, he had actually done 4. It's just that he hadn't.
He didn't sew them up, though.
Yeah, he didn't sew up or even aspirate them, which is another term that we can talk about if you don't know what it is. But they, he had done the aspiration or the sewing, which are 2 major steps to the completion of the embalming.
Yeah, it's just odd.
So
That makes me
it
think
is,
something interrupted him.
or did something to him. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
what I think. And I can't shake that. And as I think about these stories, I go back and I read them. I think, okay, that could have been that entity. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? That could have been there.
Yeah.
So he just had kind of the unlucky draw of the straw, that the
Oh,
short straw that ended up ending his life. So,
wow.
Coffiners, this is all conjecture. I don't know, and I don't pretend to know, but
But you
I
know
do
what you
know.
saw.
That's exactly right. I do know what I saw, and I do know that prep room, and I do know what I experienced when I saw him, because immediately I started looking around, and there was nothing. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone was in that room with him, they could have taken it out, but I didn't hear a buzzer, and there was no indication that someone else was there.
Oh my gosh. And especially following it up after Red X,
Mm-hmm.
even a year after. Like it's no stranger to for really unexplainable things happening there.
Yeah. And again, like our boss, he just says, "Yeah, that didn't happen. If it did happen, it was a quirk, a quirk." So, okay.
Mm.
Anyway, that's that story, Holly. But Coffiners, I'd
Oh,
love to hear what you have to say, what you have to think about the story, and
yes,
maybe give me your theories as far as what happened. Even send in your questions, and maybe we can answer those on Phone a Funeral. But
absolutely.
yeah, just give me additional questions, and I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge and recollection. So, all right, that's it.
All right. Thanks so much, Frank. Dad.
Thanks, Holly. Yeah, it
We'll
was
see you,
good.
coffiners, next
Hi,
week.
Coffiners. Sorry for the delay on this one.